Regina, how are you?
Hi, Senator. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Ready when you are.
Good. All right. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Sure.
All right. Let's just start on your overall thoughts on Syria right now, the situation. How are you feeling at this moment?
I feel better now than a week ago, where I think this Russian proposal is a good step. I think with the Russians, it's trust but verify. It has been with the Russians for decades. But I do think that it's in Russia's interest and probably Iran's interest that these chemical weapons be removed and destroyed, because the Russians and Iranians have to understand that, and I think they do, that if someone else in Syria gets their hands on chemical weapons, that they could be turned on Iran or Russia. So I think that the president's show of strength early has gotten the Russians to the table. I think that threat is still out there to them, and I'm hopeful that Secretary Kerry and Foreign Minister Lavrov of Russia can come to some agreements.
Okay, and so you say you're hopeful, but I also read that you're a little cautious. Now, what exactly does that
No,
mean?
I think you're cautious before you use military strikes. I voted against the war in Iraq. I thought that it wasn't proven. Clearly, I mean, it turns out the administration didn't tell us the truth, but clearly they didn't prove what they said they would prove. And I'm always cautious whenever you send military strikes or troops anywhere. I will not support sending troops to Syria. I'm still looking at what we do based on what happens with this Russian proposal. But I mean, you trust and verify with the Russians, but you really do. There is an opportunity here to make the situation significantly better because of the potential UN resolution.
All right, and how do you respond to other senators saying, we shouldn't get involved, we don't have a good record, we shouldn't try to resolve this war? How do you feel about that?
I feel that you wait. The president suggested, and I think he's right, that the Senate doesn't need to vote yet on the authorizing use of force. I'm always concerned. My vote against the Iraq war was based on the fact that the evidence wasn't there, and to submit to send troops into another country is a much more serious thing than was taken back then. And I don't support sending our people in harm's way unless we're prepared, they're well equipped. I know they're prepared, the military. They're well equipped, and we have a very specific goal in mind with an end point. And I don't know that we have that in Syria yet, but the Russian proposal, the UN proposal, I think could get us there.
Okay, and can you elaborate a little bit on your desire to pursue an international response?
Yeah, I think that if the Russians do what they say they'll do, I mean, it's trust but verify. If they do what they say they'll do, we may be able to rid Syria of these chemical weapons. If they don't, it will mean they went back on their word, and it means that, and I think that leads to other countries rallying around us because we've played it straight as a nation, and that means more of a multilateral effort here, and getting the other countries on board is a real key to my supporting any kind of authorization of the use of force. I don't like the idea of doing this unless we absolutely have to, and unless we have other countries' support, if at all possible.
Okay, and how about your thoughts on the president's speech on Tuesday?
I think the president was convincing, but I don't think the country is yet convinced. I think people are wary and weary of war. They trusted a government 10 years ago and a president that didn't tell them the truth in Iraq. And I think people are tired of that and know that most people, and I'm in that group, would rather rebuild our country than go into another country and damage it and rebuild there. And so the American public is very understandably very skeptical of any of this, no matter what the president had said earlier this week.
Okay, and how do you think that he can try to convince them then?
No, I think the president understands that what happens in Russia with the Russian UN proposal, the American public supports trying that and working that through, trusting but verify. And then if the Russians don't live up to what they said, I think the American public may look at this a little differently. So we'll see what happens in the next 2 weeks. I don't want to play what if, but I think we wait that out. There is no real hurry, and the president's assured us there's no real hurry in responding to the Syrians.
So do you agree that eventually something will probably have to be done then?
I think if the Russian proposal works, then something has to be done. It won't be a military strike. I don't want to do the military strike. If I had to vote today, I'd lean against that. But I want to see how this plays out and what this looks like a week or two from now before you cast a vote on American military action. It's too important to rush to judgment when there's so many different things happening all at the same time.
Okay, and how about the overall response that you've received from your constituents?
People are concerned about this. People don't like the idea of being involved in another Middle Eastern country. People have felt betrayed because of what the government did back 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I guess, with the war in Iraq. And that's why people are generally negative on this for very good reason. And I think the burden is on the government and the administration to show them why this is different from Iraq, of course, because the damage has all been done already in Syria in part. But it's up to the president to convince people and get more public support.
All right, and one more thing for you, Senator. Tomorrow you're giving some remarks to the Steelworkers. Would you mind kind of giving me a little bit of a summary of what's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing for me in the steel industry, whether it's in Eastern Ohio or Northeast or anywhere in the state, is that there be a level playing field in this country. I met with a bunch of steel people today from all over the state and all over the country, and they understand that other countries don't play fair. China doesn't play fair in currency. Other countries subsidize their steel making, and our steel mills are the most efficient in the world, frankly, now. They may not have been 15 years ago, but they are now, and they just want a level playing field. And that's my job, to fight for fair trade, not free trade agreements, but fair trade, to stand up to China on currency, to say no when countries don't play by the rules when they try to sell steel into the United States.
Okay, well, thank you so much,
Sure.
Senator. We really appreciate it.
Glad to do it. Thanks. Sure.
Okay.